Okay, so this time, no, since you already set up doing your applications, and at the same time familiarize on how you'll be able to run, to start your Hello World program. This time, it is very important for us to be familiar, no, to the interface of Android Studio. Now, the Android Studio interface consists of several windows and panels that provide various tools and features to help you develop. No. Ay, okay. Okay, to help you develop, of course, Android apps, no? Uh, we have, of course, the menu bar, no? Commonly, in all applications, we have menu bar. So the menu bar at the top of the screen provides access to various features and tools such as file, edit, view, run, and help. So another is the toolbar, no? The toolbar contains various buttons, no, that are used frequently, such as the run, debug, sync buttons. And you can also customize the toolbar to add or remove buttons according to your preference. Then after that, we have the project window. The project window displays the project structure, which includes all the files and directories of your project. And we have editor window. So the editor window is where you write and edit your code, layout files, and other resources. You can switch, no, between different files by clicking on their tabs, no, and at the top of the window. We have also what we call component tree. No? The component tree in Android application is used to display the layout hierarchy of the current layout file. It shows all the views and layouts in tree-like structure, making it easy to navigate and modify the layout. Another one is the properties window. So the properties windows, on the other hand, displays, no, the properties of the selected view or layout. And you can use it to modify the attributes of the selected view, such as its size, of course, the color, and even the text. No? Another is the log cut window. So the log cut window displays the log messages generated by your app during runtime. And you can use it to debug your app and identify any issues or errors. We have, of course, Gradle console. The Gradle console displays the output of the Gradle build system. It shows the progress of the build process and any errors of warnings that occur. And the last one is the device emulator. The device emulator is used to stimulate or to simulate an Android device on your computer. You can use it to test your app on different screen sizes, resolutions, and Android version. And these are some of the main, no, and most commonly used windows and panels that make up the Android Studio interface. Understanding how to use them effectively will make your app development process much smoother and efficient.
Alright guys, welcome back to another tutorial, and in this video what I'm going to do interface, because whenever I first started out with Android Studio, it was all kind of overwhelming and kind of confusing. It just made me feel uncomfortable, not really knowing what any of this stuff was. So what I'm not going to do is I'm not going to go through piece by piece and talk to you guys in detail what everything means. Instead, as we need the tools, that's when I'm going to be talking to you guys about, okay, so this is, the AVD manager and this is how you use it. So instead of overwhelming you guys, giving you, the intricate details of what everything is, I just want to give you guys a real general overview to make you guys a little bit more comfortable with the interface. Blech, can't talk. Alright, so of course, at the very top, this is simple up here. We have the menu bar. Pretty much all of our additional tools and settings, as well as some, very common stuff we can find in the menu bar. Nothing new there. Now under it, we have a toolbar. So all of these little icons, this is actually called the toolbar right here. Now, as we saw in the last tutorial, what the toolbar is basically shortcuts to more commonly used aspects of the program. For example, maybe this SDK manager. Well, we can also get there with tools, Android SDK manager, but since we use that quite a bit, that's why they put that in the toolbar. Now, if you ever want to customize your toolbar, I recommend just keeping it the same. But if you ever have a tool that you find yourself using a lot, you can actually right click in this empty area and click Customize Menus and Toolbars, and then you can click the little programs that you either want to, remove or add. Again, you click on them and all of your settings are right here to either add them or remove them from your toolbar. Pretty intuitive. So that's what that little chunk of this Android Studio is. Now underneath this little thing right here that looks like I don't know, kind of a file directory explanation on like steroids or something. This is actually called the navigation bar, and basically what it is it shows the path to whatever current file you're working on. So this right here, the navigation bar, is pretty much the same as this thing up here. So it's pretty much a long file path. Now the cool thing about this is that, like I said, it is pretty much a file path on steroids, because if you ever go to a directory, you can actually click on it and it's going to show you all the contents of that directory. So pretty sweet. And again, it's a file path to whatever current file you're working on. So if you change a file, this is going to change as well. Now, this main area that I cannot ignore is the editor window. So the editor window is where we're going to be spending most of our time, and it's pretty much the main area to show whatever file you are currently working on. So right now, we'll talk about this designer later on. It's pretty much, as you probably could have guessed, how you lay out all the widgets and stuff for your interface. Now, we're also going to be looking at this a lot, which is pretty much the text view of the file, pretty much where we're going to be editing the source code and doing a bunch of cool stuff. But anyways, this main area shows whatever current file you're working on. You probably could have guessed that. Now over here on the left hand side, this is called the project window. Now whenever I am developing an app, what I like to do is I like to change this drop down from Android to project. So as you can see, whenever you change it to project, it's going to list every directory in your entire project. Now, one of the most important directories is called app. Now, this is where all your source code and all your like main layout files are. So if you just want a real condensed view of all the important files, then you can just hover down to Android, and I'll actually keep that on Android for this tutorial. But if you ever want an overview of your entire project, again, you can change that to project. But just for these tutorials, all the source code and stuff is in this Android drop down. So I'll stick with that. I don't know. I think it'll be a little bit easier, I guess. Alright. So we pretty much covered this whole interface except for these things on the side. These little bars that say like project, structure, all of that crap. So first of all, as you can see, whenever I click it, it toggles whatever window is on and off. So this is the project window, and I'm going to click that. It's going to toggle that visible, or I don't want to say it's invisible, but visible, invisible. I'll say that, whatever. So if you ever feel that your entire interface, it just looks kind of cluttered and you decide that you want to hide all of these quick window bars, then go down in the very bottom left corner and you're going to see this little square gray icon. This is the toggle either to show or hide all of these quick window bars. So click that and they're all going to be hidden. Click it again, show them all, hide, show. Can do it all day if you want. So I'm going to go ahead and click that again so it shows them all because that's the default. Now another thing I want to point out is if you hover over it, it's going to give you all of those quick windows. So I don't know, maybe you're on maybe you're on the structure and you want to get the project again, but you're too lazy to bring your mouse all the way back up there. So you can just go this, click project, and it's going to pop up for you. Again, just two different ways of doing the same thing.
Okay. So right after that, I'll just want to give you some Android Studio tips. No? For us to use some Android Studio, no, there are certain shortcuts actually in are available applications in Android or module where we can able to do more efficiently. So number one will be the keyboard shortcuts, no? Learning and using keyboard shortcuts can save you a lot of time while developing your app, no? An Android Studio has a vast array of keyboard shortcuts that you can use to quickly perform various tasks, no? You can access the list of shortcut by pressing Control plus Shift plus A or Command plus Shift plus A on a Mac. No? So it means to say if you're using Windows, you just simply press Control plus Shift plus A, then automatically some keyboard shortcut will display. But if you are using Mac, just simply press Command plus Shift plus A for you to display the keyboard shortcuts. Another is the code completion, completion. No? Android Studio provide code completion, which can help you write code faster and reduce errors. You can use shortcut Control plus space or Command plus space on Mac to trigger code completion. Another is debugging. No? Debugging your app is an essential part of the development process. No? Android Studio provides several debugging tools, including breakpoints, variable inspection, and method profiling. And you can use the debug button on the toolbar or just simply click Shift plus F9 to start debugging your app. We have also what we call code formatting. No? Consistent code formatting can make your code more readable and easier to maintain, because Android Studio provides various code formatting options and you can access through the code menu. We have also code analysis. Now, Android Studio is highly customizable. You can customize the appearance of the interface or the behavior of various tools and even add new features through plugins. And you can access the customization option by selecting setting from the file menu. We have also what we call version control. Android Studio provide seamless integration with version control system like Git. No, you can use the version controls tools to manage your code changes, collaborate with other developers, and track your project history. These are some tips that can help you use Android Studio more efficiently and effectively. With these tools and features at your disposal, you can streamline your development process and create high-quality Android application.
If you go to help, and by the way, that was basically the quick 2 second overview of the interface. Of course, there's a lot of other stuff, but like I said, I'm going to be covering those as we need them, as not to overwhelm you guys right now. So what I'm going to teach you guys right now are just little tips that I don't you guys are probably going to thank me for, because they're just going to make your experience developing apps a whole lot better. First is if you go to help and you scroll down to default key map references. Let me actually minimize this, although I don't think it'll matter. What it's going to do is it's going to give you a PDF of all of the keyboard shortcuts that you can use for the program. So again, of course, I'm not going to go over any of these right now because that would just be dumb and boring. So instead, what I recommend is actually printing this out, laminating it, and putting it on every single wall in your room, because these are incredibly useful and you're going to be using them a lot. But actually, for these tutorials, I don't like to use keyboard shortcuts, because if like a window pops up and then you guys just see my mouse in the same place, you're like, okay, how the heck did you do that? And I don't know, it just gets confusing whenever I'm teaching, but they will be useful to you. Now, another thing that I want to show you guys that probably a lot of you guys are itching to do is change the theme of your entire Android Studio. I know a lot of you like a dark theme, so let me show you how to do that right now. If you go to File, Settings, and this was something else. Alright, so File, Settings, and if you go to Appearance and then Theme, by default this is IntelliJ or whatever it is. Windows one is pretty much a lighter theme, but the font's a little bit different. In Darkula, I don't want to change it because my screen recorder is probably gonna tweak out if I change the entire theme. But right now, I'm gonna keep this one because I love it. Darkula is the dark one that you guys might be looking for. Windows, if you like really ugly, stupid looking font, then you can choose that too. So of course, after this, you would just hit apply and then okay, but I like mine, so I'm just gonna can't actually while I'm in here, I'll talk to you guys about a few more things. Alright. So first of all, actually let me back out of here so you guys can see what I'm about to teach you. Alright. So first of all, whenever we're working with a text file, just go ahead and click any Java file to open up. We're not going to be talking about the source code right now, but I'm going to be showing you guys some useful things of how to actually work with it. As you can see, the gutter on the left hand side, for some reason, and I'm not sure why, but every IDE and every text editor pretty much that I ever downloaded, it doesn't show the line numbers by default. And I have no idea why they do that because I always love looking at the line numbers. So to display the line numbers on this one, it's actually really easy. Just right click anywhere in the gutter, that's the gray area, and click show line numbers. Pretty sweet, check that out. Now another thing that I absolutely hate is this code folding. That's pretty much when you have a bunch of code, like an entire body of a function or this right here, and it bunches it up for you. Now the reason I hate this is because I love looking at all of the code, and also for the tutorials if you guys are trying to copy the source code and you're like, okay, I need to know what he imported, but oh, that's great, it's all bunched up. It's really annoying even to me, and I'm sure it's even more annoying to you. So if you want to get rid of all of the code folding, as it's called, go to File and back in Settings. Let me minimize this, make sure you guys see everything, and go to that's console folding. Go to Editor under the IDE settings and code folding, and right here this first checkbox is just to show the code folding outline, and that's that little arrow you can click to either bunch it up or expand it. But what I want to do is I want to uncheck all of these, so none of my code is going to be folded. Again, once I apply this, as you can see, my actual area that you guys can see may be a little bit bigger, but whenever you guys are trying to read my source code in the tutorials, then it's going to make it a whole lot easier. So again, I highly recommend putting the line numbers on by right clicking, showing line numbers, and getting rid of code folding because I absolutely hate it. Personal preference.
Okay. Then afterwards, of course, we need to create a custom Android virtual device. No? So to create a custom Android virtual device or AVD in Android programming, there are certain steps. No? Number one, you need to open Android Studio and select AVD Manager from the toolbar, or go to Tools, select AVD Manager from the menu. You just click the Create Virtual Device button. So choose the device definitions you want to use for the AVD, and you can select from a list of predefined devices or create a custom one. Select System Image for the device, and you can choose from a list of pre-installed System Manager or system images, or download one from the Download tab. No? You can customize the AVD properties according to your requirements. Now, you can give it to the name, change the device orientation, if you want to set the screen size and resolution, and adjust the random access memory and storage and more. Then afterwards, you can click Finish button to create the AVD. Okay. Once the AVD is created, you can launch it by clicking on the play button next to its name in the AVD Manager. So you can now use your custom AVD to test your Android applications on a virtual devices.
Alright guys, welcome back to another video. And in this tutorial, what I want to do is I want to show you guys how to create your own custom AVDs, of course your virtual devices. I showed you guys how to use the default one earlier, but if we want to become expert app developers from the ground up, that's where we need to start. We need to understand pretty much what goes on behind the scenes because after all all these apps that people develop, they would be pretty worthless if we didn't have any phones or tablets to run them on. So that's what I'm going to be doing. And in the next tutorial, I think I said that last time, but in the next tutorial, I promise we're going to be getting into the code, the designer, all that good stuff. So for now, hop up to this little thing. Remember, this is the AVD manager. And again, I already told you guys that I created my own custom one right here. And in the last example, you guys may have ran this one, and it may have taken up your whole screen. Probably pretty annoying. So in this tutorial, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you guys how to create your own custom AVDs. So first of all, go down here to this little button and click Create Virtual Device. Now, of course, the first thing we have to choose is what device do you want to create? Do you want to create a TV, a phone, a wearable, like a watch, or a tablet? Well, I'm just going to go phone, and then once I click that, I get all of the definitions of phone. Now, don't let the word definition fool you. These are pretty much just different phones. Like if you went into, I don't know, like a Verizon store or like a Best Buy or something, this is pretty much the equivalent of picking out which phone that you want. So the edited one is one that I was working on earlier, but let's just go ahead and pick out, let's use the Galaxy Nexus. That was actually a pretty good one. So this is the Galaxy Nexus phone. Now the first thing that I want to do is I actually want to clone this because if I start just editing this, then it's going to mess up the default settings. So you always want to clone it, and this is going to allow you to use a copy that if you mess up with, then you just messed up the copy, no big deal. So first of all, since this is our own custom phone, I'm going to name this thing anything that I want. So we'll say that I don't know, we'll say that we're making the slimmest phone in the world. So I'm going to call my phone Slim Shady, the new phone that's going to wipe out Samsung, wipe out Motorola. Slim Shady is the next big thing. All right. So anyways, there's my little daydream. Another thing that I want to point out is all of this stuff. Again, we're going to be customizing a bunch of stuff on this phone later on, but this is pretty much the hardware configuration. Now, you don't really ever want to change the hardware configuration of your phone because it's not like they ever release phones with like 720 by 18 million pixels. You know, the hardware always stays the same for the most part. It's the software that changes. So again, give your device or your phone a custom name and click finish. And now if you go to phone, you can see, okay, this is our custom phone, same hardware. We didn't do anything stupid to it. So click on it and choose next. So now that we have pretty much the phone itself, and by that I mean just the hardware, we can go ahead and start working on the system image. So this is pretty much saying what version of Android do you want to use. Now I recommend putting the latest one on it just because, I don't know, you know that knocked over my mouse. Actually, by the way, this has nothing to do with app development or anything, but I started to get like carpal tunnel symptoms. So whenever I would type like my entire arm, there would be like a nerve that shot up, and I'm like, oh my god, in the middle of my tutorial. So I got this cool little glove that had like beanbags in it, and I also got these things called a vertical mouse. So go to Google and type in vertical mouse. That's what I'm using. It's like this goofy looking mouse that I don't know, it kind of looks dangerous to be honest. But anyways, got a little sidetrack there. Back to the video. So what we want to choose is what version of Android do we want to put on that phone we just made. Well, a system image is pretty much just a copy of all the system files and settings. Pretty much just think of it as like your main system, your main computer. So the one I like to use is just x86 from Google. These all are open source, but I always just went with Google because I don't know, they have like the best developers in the world, and you always know that their system image is nice, working correctly. It never gave me any problems, so I like to choose that one. Click next. Now here is where I like to do a couple of things to pretty much customize my virtual device. So again, this name looks pretty good. All right, that looks good, that looks good. One thing that I like to do is I like to go to scale, And right now, the one you just saw, Bucky's phone, that was 4DP on device, 1 pixel on screen. Now what this does is it just shrinks it to make it fit better on your screen. Because again, this screen size of the phone, it might be bigger than your desktop screen size. So again, whenever you're developing, it's going to give you some problems. I usually choose 4DP on device. 10DP is like a really mini phone. It looks like, I don't know, like the size of your, it's just way too small. So again, I'm going to choose, that was embarrassing. Anyways, moving on. So yeah, that's what I like to do. Now, another thing I want to point out is this emulated performance, you can only choose one of these. And I'm going to recommend used host GPU. Now, what this does is it allows the emulator to use your computer's graphics card, the actual computer, your desktop or laptop or whatever, to make it run faster. Now, this snapshot, what this would do is it will pretty much keep the state of your emulator, so whenever you close out of it, it starts up faster again. So the reason I don't like this is because whenever you close your emulator, it has to save everything and it takes a little bit of time to close out. So I'm going to recommend use host GPU, which pretty much speeds up your emulator, and during your development process you can just keep your phone running. So as long as you keep it running, you shouldn't have any issues at all. So now that we have our virtual device set up, just click finish. And this takes a while to actually create it. But once we have it created, again, what we can do is we can actually edit it to go to this button. And of course, if you ever want to change any settings, maybe, okay, that was actually a little too small, so I'm going to boost that size up. You can do it right there. And of course, to test it out, you can just click this green button right here. Now, while this is booting up, again, like I said, during your development process, you can actually just leave this entire emulator running. You don't need to close out of it like I don't know, maybe in some other like programming languages you're learning, you actually close out of a program whenever you're testing it and then rebuild it. Well, the cool thing is you can just keep this window open and then click this to rebuild your project, and it's pretty much just going to restart the app right in your emulator, so you don't have to wait for this to boot up every time. So again, there you go. There's your emulator. Again, this one was just a demonstration. I'm going to delete it because I already have that sweet one, Bucky's phone, that I'm going to use for the tutorials. But if you ever want to make your own custom emulators, your AVDs, or edit them, delete them, now you know how. So now that we know how to make those, we can finally move on to the good stuff. It's going to be awesome. So I'll see you guys in the next tutorial.
Okay. Then right after that, no, right after the in creating custom AVD, what will be the next will be the basic overview of an app, no? An Android app is a software application that runs on Android mobile devices such as a smartphone, tablet, and smartwatches, as I mentioned earlier during our introduction. No? So, there are certain components, no, of an Android app. Number one, activities. No? So, the primary building block of an Android app is an activity. So, it represents a single screen with a user interface. So, an app can have one or more or multiple activities. The layouts, no? The user interface of an activity is defined by its layout. So, a layout can contain UI elements such as text views, buttons, images, and more. Next will be intents. No? Activities can communicate with each other or with system services by sending intents. No? An intent is a message that can carry data between components of an app or between different apps. Next will be the services. No? So, a service is a component that runs in the background and performs long-running operations or respond to system events. It doesn't have a user interface. We have, of course, broadcast receivers. No? On the other hand, no, a broadcast receiver is a component, no, that manage a shared set of app data that can be accessed by other apps or components. We have, of course, manifest file. No? So the Android manifest.xml file contains information about the apps, components, permissions required, and other metadata. And the last is the resources. An Android app can have various types of resources such as strings, images, layouts, and more. So the resources are kept in the res or directory or res your resources directory and can be accessed by the app's code or layout. So an Android app can have multiple activities, services, broadcast receivers, content providers, and these components can work together, no, to provide a rich user experience. Again, the Android SDK provides various APIs and tools to develop the test Android apps. Okay, so this will be the last video presentation, and we may proceed next meeting about the
All right, guys.
topic.
Welcome to another tutorial, and in this video what I want to do is I want to explain pretty much the overall structure of a really basic simple app. So make sure that you have, and these files should already be open because they probably open by default whenever you created your project, but if you accidentally close them, make sure you have this activity main.xml open, and that's of course an app, res, layout, activity main, and this one right here, main activity.java, and that's of course an app, Java, your com.thenewboston, my app, or whatever you named it package, and this file right here. So again, these two files open, and remember in the last couple tutorials I said every single app is made up of these things called activities. Now for now, just think of an activity as a screen. So if you're making an app for, I don't know, like your website, you might have an activity for your profile page, you might have an activity for the home screen, you might have an activity for like the about section for your company or something, I don't know. But each app, like I said, is made up of these screens, and these screens, the technical name for them is an activity. So with that being said, we can now talk about this. Each activity within your app is made up of two parts. The first part is the part we see right here. It's the user interface. It's where all your colors, your text, pretty much the design of your activity is going to be right here in this XML file. Now the brains of your activity is this Java file right here. For example, whenever you have a button on your activity and you click it, well, you need to tell that button to do something. So the smart intelligence of your activity is going to be all in this code, the Java file. So again, your app is made up of activities, different screens. Now each screen has pretty much a user interface, the design, and the smarts of it, or the brains of it, and that's a Java class. So pretty much, if we ever wanted to make another activity, what we would do is we would create a new class with a new name and a new XML file. Simple enough. So now that we understand pretty much the basic overview of what an activity is and what they're made up of, we can start talking about the different components of it. So hop over to this XML file, which I said is pretty much the interface, the layout of your entire app, what it looks like. Now, if you look at the bottom, we have two different tabs right here, the design view and the text view. Now, I want to mention this because this might confuse some people. This is actually just two different views of the same exact file. What Android Studio did is they built this tool that is pretty much just a user-friendly tool of working with the interface, but what it's actually doing whenever you, I don't know, like edit part of your interface, is it's actually editing an underlying file for you, and that's the XML file. So you can either do that with the design tool by dragging and dropping stuff and editing some settings, or just editing the source code directly. So let's actually go ahead and look at an example of this. The first thing I want to do is get rid of this. So hop over to your XML file in design view, click on this hello world, and then just hit delete on your keyboard. So we have a blank Nothing here. So the first thing I probably should mention is this. What you can do to each of your activities is you can add widgets to them. Now, widgets are just little thingies that you add to your interface. And I say thingies because there's not really one word to describe all these things. For example, let's add one of these large text areas. And this is pretty much to add any static, not changing text. So let's just go ahead and drag that in the middle and type anything you want. So if you actually drag it in the middle, you're going to see these little green grid lines, and that's just to align everything properly. Now if you double click this, then you can edit the text of it, and I'm just going to type in like the new Boston, hit enter, and it changes. So it's really intuitive like that, not really hard to figure out. So you can also add some more widgets if you want. Again, like I said, I'm just demonstrating how to use the basic tools, so feel free to drag any of these widgets on if you just want to play around with it. For example, you have radio buttons and progress bars, all that stuff. So again, widgets are just thingies that you can add to your interface. Now again, you can either do that in design mode or text mode. So whenever you click text mode, it actually shows you a little preview right here, which is actually nice. So let's go ahead and just add one little property. So in your XML file right here, just so I don't leave you guys hanging and I do explain everything. If you guys never worked with XML before, it's pretty much like HTML, but you can use cool names for your tags. So if you don't know HTML or XML, then I'll probably recommend going to watch those tutorials. But as long as you know HTML, then you guys will probably be able to follow along with these tutorials fine. So again, a real quick overview. We're going to be talking about this in detail later on. This tutorial is just to give you guys a basic understanding. So right now, our main tag right here is a relative layout. Now, a layout is just a general overview of it's saying how widgets should be positioned on the screen. And there are different types of layouts that we can have, but it's pretty much the overall rules of how things can be laid out. Now, this text view right here is just this widget right here. So each widget you add actually adds a new XML element to your file. So say that we wanted to change the background color of this right here. Well, what we would do is actually go up to relative layout and add a new attribute. For right now, I just want to show you guys, if you type Android colon and type background, then what you can do is you can actually type in a value here. Now this is actually one of my favorite colors, 006699. It's a blue color that I use on my website a lot. So again, you can also pretty much edit the interface this way through the source code. So again, the XML is your interface. We looked at how to change it with design, this design tool, and we're probably going to be using this one more often. And also the source code directly is pretty much just like a website, kind of like Dreamweaver if you ever use that. So yeah, and actually what I want to do is actually click this widget right here, and you see that I just clicked that and it gave me some problems. What I'm going to do is hit Control Z, and I'm going to show you guys this little tip. Over here in their component tree is pretty much an overview of your entire activity. So this is your entire screen. This is the layout of how the widgets are supposed to be arranged. And right here, I'm going to click Text View. So if you ever have a bunch of widgets and they're kind of hard to select, maybe they're close together or whatever, you can actually just select it right in this component tree, and it's going to select it for you. So again, deselect it, select it again, make selecting your widgets a little bit easier. Actually, what I want to do to this is change the color of the text to white. So I'm going to select that widget, and I know the property for this is text color. So if I find that, I'm just going to click in, well, I guess I just type it in and I know the value. The value of white is FFFFFF. And hit enter and check it out. Your text is now white. Probably the coolest app ever. Again, this tool right here, it isn't really that hard to understand, but we'll cover more about it later on. Got your widgets, componentry, properties, drag and drop, tomato, tomato. So now let's go ahead and hop over to this. Now there's actually one more file that I want to show you before I let you go. So each activity, like I said, is an XML and Java file. However, go up to your app and you're going to find a directory under it called manifest. Now expand this and you're going to find another XML file called Android manifest.xml. Now double click that to open it, and let me drag this all the way to the left. Alright, so to recap one more time, your app is more likely than not going to have a bunch of different activities. Now, this Android manifest right here, think of this like is the main manager for your app. It's where everything comes together. If you have a bunch of activities floating around, they can be kind of hard to keep track of. So what this does, again, it's the main file that pretty much manages your entire app. So each activity that you create, this is actually going to be a new element in the Android manifest file. So I'll actually talk to you guys about this right now. As soon as your application starts, of course, your phone doesn't know what to do. It says, okay, where do I go? You have a bunch of different activities. Well, what am I supposed to be doing? The very first thing that your phone's going to do is it's going to look for a file called Android manifest.xml. So it says, okay, I'm always going to look for this file right here. And right after I open this file, what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at all of your activities. Now, right now, we only have one activity, so it shouldn't take it too long to find, but it's going to look through all your activities right here, and it's going to look for a property called, actually all these properties are kind of important, but it's going to look for a property called launcher. Now this launcher is pretty much saying that this is the main activity that you want to launch first. This is where your app's starting point is. So it says, okay, I found it. Now let's check out this activity. Alright, so it says the launcher is the main activity. So from here, you want me to go to the main activity. So it hops over here, and then it says, okay, well, what's the deal with this main activity? Well, all of this we'll talk about later. Essentially, all this activity does right now is it sets this as your layout, activity underscore main, right there. So again, 3 very important files, but that's essentially all our app is doing right here. Again, I'm going to be covering the details of everything later on, but your phone is going to look at this first, Android manifest.xml. It's going to look for the activity that it's supposed to launch. Now, ours says go to main activity, and all main activity does right now, I can't talk, is it launches this layout. So what the user does is they click
Okay, so I think we end up with this discussions, no, about the basic overview of an application. So next meeting we're going to continue about on how we'll be able to use the activity states, no, how we'll be able to run or running the state changing. Some examples, no, I will give you that, and at the same time, some codes we'll be able to use in developing your Android applications. But before I forgot, your assignment will be group by at least by 2, a group of 2, doing a simple applications. So you just record or submit a video recording on how we'll be able to install up to the first applications where display Hello World or Hello PTC Executive Class 2023, then with color background. Okay. So I'll just want to reiterate once again that again, mobile Android programming offers a flexible and powerful platform for developing a wide range application for mobile devices. Okay, I think that's it for today.